Takopi no Genzai has been stuck in my head in a way few stories have in a long time. I want nothing more than to immediately bless you all with the scriptures from the book of Takopi, but to begin speaking about the significance of the points Takopi no Genzai seeks to illuminate for its audience, we must first explore the character who is the heartbeat of the narrative, titular character himself, Lord Takopi. Takopi comes from what many of us Earthlings would consider a utopia. On his planet, there is no fighting or conflict, his people have made marvelous technological advancements, and the worries that plague humans on a day-to-day basis are completely foreign to Takopi. Takopi's understanding of the world and the way it operates is very much like that of a small child. Takopi represents innocence. He is ignorant of all the deceitfulness and malice that plagues the human heart as it grows older and experiences life's hardships. He is a free soul and about the closest thing to a blank slate that an individual could hope to come across. Due to his natural childlike sense of curiosity, Takopi makes quick friends with the young Shizuka following the act of kindness she provided him upon their first meeting. While we know from the events later in the story that Shizuka is not actually the first human that Takopi came across, due to his amnesia he is starting from square one regarding his knowledge and understanding of humans, so Shizuka serves as his gateway once again into the realities of the human condition. From his interactions with Shizuka, he makes his first encounters with the concepts of bullying, neglect, physical abuse, depression, and fear. Takopi observes Shizuka as she experiences this negative treatment from others and undergoes these difficult emotional states. He cannot grasp why humans would deliberately do things to make one another feel so negatively. I think here is a suitable time to mention the brilliance of the title, Takopi's Original Sin. The title is so intelligent because it can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. Upon one's initial understanding of the story, one can understand it as referring to Takopi's murder of Marina with the happy camera, his original sin of violence that set in motion the rest of the events within the story. One could also interpret the original sin as being Takopi's initial promise to Marina to kill Shizuka in the vain hope that everything in her life would be made better if she weren't around. While each of these explanations are feasible, the title is ultimately referring to something broader. Takopi's original sin, much like the original sin of Adam and Eve, was him trading in his innocence for knowledge of the concepts of good and evil. While Adam bit from the apple brought to him by Eve, Takopi ate of the bread offered to him from the two most important females in his life, Shizuka and Marina. Eating of the bread offered to him led Takopi on a journey where he would transform from a being of innocence and ignorance into a creature of enlightenment that is now burdened with the knowledge of recognizing right from wrong. After coming upon this knowledge, Takopi was cast out of heaven, or in his case, Happy Planet, exiled by his god, the Happy Mother, and doomed to toil the earth amongst the rest of the humans, forever barred from paradise. And although it is the forbidden knowledge of good and evil that caused Takopi to be removed from paradise, it is also the gaining of this knowledge that allowed him to experience true understanding and connection for the first time in his life. When Takopi first came upon Shizuka and Marina, whenever they would share with him their worries or negative emotions, his first reaction would be to find a way to distract them from their problems or try to fix whatever the issue was that was occurring. Takopi's desire to do this came from a pure place. He cared deeply about Marina and Shizuka, so he wanted to do whatever in his power was possible to take their pain away or make them feel better. Takopi would grow sad and confused when Marina or Shizuka would get angry at him for offering his tools, not understanding why they were so reluctant to take him up on his offer when he genuinely believed it could make them feel better. It was only upon his conversation with Azuma towards the end of the story and reflecting on his journey with both girls that he realized one of the most pivotal aspects of human interaction. Being a support to someone is not about trying to fix every problem that occurs in their life. It is about striving to understand who that person is and really listening to what they have to say. Love is not about having the right tool or the right thing to say for every scenario. It is realizing that life is complex. You don't always have the right answers, but you care about that person, so you're going to be there anyway. True love is about communication. It is realizing that the person you love isn't perfect. The same way they do things to make you feel good, they are also capable of harming you and making you feel worse than anyone else can. It is understanding that they will not always make the right choices, but choosing to love them anyway despite those faults. It is being honest with that person and telling them things that they may not always want to hear, but saying it anyway because you care about their well-being more than their temporary negative emotions towards you. Through his interactions with the kids he met on Earth, Takopi became what we should all strive to be, truly human. And for his last act of humanity, much like Jesus in the Christian faith, Takopi made the ultimate sacrifice and gave up his life so that those he loved might have a better existence. Now, while those that Takopi impacted couldn't remember their direct memories with him, the love and desires he had for both Shizuka and Marina lingered after his passing and provided them both with the catalyst they needed to connect and the strength that would allow them to survive the difficult times ahead. In addition to its messages of love and understanding bolstered by its religious theming, Takopi no Genzai also provides stunning insight into how trauma and familial abuse can shape an otherwise well-adjusted child and damage them profoundly to the point of physical and psychological destruction. Each of the main characters in the story, Shizuka, Marina, and Azuma, were victims of abuse, and Mangaka Taizan 5 utilized the children's parents to place a spotlight on the diverse ways that abuse can look. Shizuka was a victim of neglect. Neglect is defined by the government's Department on Child Welfare as any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, or exploitation. Shizuka was routinely left at home for days on end by her mother, who was more concerned with going on dates and her own selfish desires desires and supervising Shizuka and ensuring she had what she needed. Shizuka's father abandoned Shizuka and her mother when Shizuka was a small child and was such a non-factor in her life that he barely recognized her when she came to his doorstep in Tokyo. Through Shizuka's experiences, Taizan 5 illustrates how neglect can lead a child into a state of significant depression, loneliness, rage, and increase their desires to self-harm or participate in antisocial activities. There were points in the story where Shizuka manipulated Azuma into stealing from his brother, nearly taking the fall for what Takopi did to Marina so she could run to Tokyo without suspicion. Admittedly, it made me question Shizuka's character multiple times, and I found myself empathizing with her less and less as things continued. But upon reflection, one must realize that Shizuka was only doing her best to survive with the tools that she learned from the adults around her. From what we know of Shizuka's mother, it would not be surprising if Shizuka learned how to manipulate men by watching how her mother treated the men she would bring around. By this point in the narrative, Shizuka feels she has nothing. She feels no one loves her, she is constantly bullied, her best friend Chappie has been going for several weeks now, and every day her will to go on lessens and lessens. Shizuka is desperate for something, anything good to happen in her life, and if this means she must lie or manipulate to get what she needs, then that's a small price to pay for everything the world has already put her through. Marina's life is characterized by physical abuse. Early on through the eyes of Takopi, we are given a glimpse of the daily emotional turmoil Marina goes through witnessing her mother and father's knockdown, drag-out arguments. Marina's father is neglectful, regularly leaving Marina and his wife to spend the night with other women. Marina's mother has taken to alcohol as her coping skill, and on nights when she is drunk and in particularly foul moods, we see that she has no qualms with striking Marina and projecting her frustrations about her marriage onto her. Research has noted that individuals who experience physical violence at home have an increased likelihood to aggress physically upon others in their own life, which can help us understand better why Marina chooses to physically assault Shizuka the way she does at school. It's simply a mirror of her own unhappiness and the behaviors that has been normalized at home. This is not to say that the behavior is justifiable in any way, only that Marina's home life gives us significant context as to how she became the person that she is throughout the beginning and middle of the story. Finally, Azuma's mother is guilty of emotional abuse and neglect, and her treatment of Azuma has left him with a severe inferiority complex and dangerously low self-esteem. Emotional abuse is so dangerous because it is one of the most difficult forms of abuse to recognize. Definitions vary, but emotional abuse is defined by the rejection and withholding of affection, the use of humiliation and degradation, as well as verbal abuse and isolation to manipulate and control. Azuma feels constantly stuck in the shadow of his older brother due to his mother's constantly comparing the two against one another in an exceedingly unhealthy sibling rivalry. No grade is high enough, no achievement is grand enough to please her, leading Azuma vulnerable to the manipulations of those around him. Because of his mother's lack of attentiveness and refusal to acknowledge his accomplishments even the slightest bit, Azuma is constantly seeking validation. Unfortunately, the source of validation he finds in Shizuka is also as damaged as he is, leading him to agreeing to participate in activities that he knows are against his better judgment, all because he simply wants someone to tell him that he is worthwhile. This is one of the greatest dangers of low self-esteem. It can lead you into the arms of someone who only seeks to use you, but you will be unable to recognize it because the kind words and gestures they make actively deceive you and keep you from full view of the truth. Taizan 5 masterfully displays the harm unhealthy parents can do to their kids, and I applaud him for tackling such a complex subject through his art. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. In no way am I saying that I believe the only people that should be allowed children are those with zero issues that have led perfect lives. If that were the case, none of us would be here. But what I do think Taizan 5 is calling for in his work in Takopii no Genzai is recognition and accountability. This narrative made me reflect on the reality of how important it is to process your trauma before attempting to bring another life into this world. If you are an adult that has been deeply scarred by the traumas that have been enacted upon you growing up, I'm not saying that you are to blame for that, but I do think that you need to recognize that you may not be okay and seek out the help you need before having children of your own and unknowingly perpetuating the cycle of violence and pain that you experience because it has been internalized and you do not know any other way to live. We are not to blame for our traumas, but we are responsible for how we choose to manage that pain, and there's no valid excuse for us to aggress upon others because damaged people did that to us in the past. Takopii no Genzai is a story about breaking cycles. It is a narrative that asks us to break the time loop that we may have been unknowingly stuck in for some time and heal so that we can be better for ourselves as well as those around us. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this video. Remember that Takopii loves you, be good, and I will talk to you all again soon.